we are an arts focused school. That is our mission. That's how we got the charter authorization. That's how we exist. And so it is a little bit of a switch, but we've got some high school teachers that are amazing at arts integration and really lead the way.
So this goal feels really low, but you're telling me
Yes, it is low. And we put it there, hopefully with the understanding that everyone will achieve success, because we would like to increase it, because our whole purpose of arts integration in any classroom is for student success. Because there's so many different ways students can demonstrate success, and if we aren't offering that, well, that's why our families choose our school. Exactly right. Exactly right.
What is needed successfully at
For some.
elementary. Yeah, and for some at the high school, right? Because we know that that's happening in the high school.
Yes.
So what have been like maybe the top 3 key success things that elementary as you've implemented, that everyone has implemented this to be really good at maybe is best practice
I think
across the
the
board.
professional development has been essential. So as you guys know, we went to the Walt Family Foundation. I wrote the grant saying this is our mission, we need to really support our staff. And they came in, and it's been an incredible support network. So it's not just a one and done professional development. They're here, they model work in classrooms, it's full on support network of multiple people that are actually from the classroom or leaders in the district. The same level of support needs to roll into the high school, and they'll hopefully write another grant. But it's an expensive ED. It's a $400,000 investment that the Walt Family Foundation gave to us, and we are taking full advantage of it. So it is really thinking about how to use arts differently, and also then what do we do to support the teachers and making sure it's really seamless.
And are we tracking this stuff?
We are tracking. We have
Aired something that says.
with the artful learning specifically, we did a pre and post. And to see the difference in the responses from teachers was astounding. And I sat in on their sort of post conference with the artful learning people, and to sit back and watch them use this dialogue that at the beginning of the year, they were a little bit fearful, like it was new and they didn't know exactly what that was going to be like, and how is it going to take time, and how is it going to, disrupt. And to have the conversations at the end, seeing the growth and the positivity and the culture that has changed and is solidified through this common mission has been outstanding. So this high school campus is commended about the way they pull together and put students first, 100% put students first. I think high school will get there. Aaron's metric is that he's offered himself, and the goal is the teachers will reach out to him and say, this is my semester. Here's some ideas. How can I help you? And those of you that know Aaron knows how energetic and open he is. And so this is, again, this opportunity. In addition, we've got these community partners that are really open and really wanting us to participate and come visit them more. So in addition to actually what it is the classroom, we've got community partners at home wanting us to come collaborate. And just as a side note, Ann Winslow, is our staff at the high school. She and Aaron are going to do a charter school network conference next week and presenting her arts integration project, which is stellar. And so there are really great things going on, and we just want to make it where that positivity and growth feeds off and builds.
And Aaron, a question for you in the back. This is something you feel like you have the bandwidth to be able to support the teachers and kind of the creative thought process of thinking through what this curriculum could look like?
No. I mean, in the term of no, because of the plan of what we are wanting to do, it has to be through a school network. This is why this has been such a long road to hoe, because for those of you that were here 9 years ago, this was kind of what we were supposed to be doing. Starting with an A+, and we're looking at here. I know, so I roll. We got past that, right? And so at that time when I was hired, it was artful learning the entire time. So we finally got them here. In 1 year's time, you can see the impact. And I think every elementary teacher will tell you how important and how amazing that this is. The issues that you were kind of reading up there with kind of the one You don't know what you don't know when you're a teacher. Arts integration is not arts engagement or arts enhancement. It's actually having to have the outcomes of each and assess them equitably. These teachers are overworked. We can't have then the music teacher come in and then come and do this. They don't have that. The only way to do this is with a school network. And that's why Dr. Roberts and I have really been pushing them. I'm very excited to be working with somebody who's like, sees the importance of it. We're going after every grant that we can. We see the success, we've measured it. We are now having artful learning. They're in dialogue of wanting to come to the 7th and 8th grade. Once they're at the 7th and 8th grade, that's great because everything that these elementary teachers are now doing, they're keeping the same language, the same objects, everything that then folds over. Now, when you get to 9th and 12th, it's a different animal, you know, because you've got AP and you've got all these things. But we have opportunities to then kind of then do that and still use our line. And that's why we're kind of looking at this. And that's why I say, no, not one person can do this. We've got to do this. And then it just helps all the teachers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Let's go down to continue. The support pieces for that are continued PD for art integration, art learning supplies, assessments for rubrics, a specific budget for arts integration. One of the things that I'm looking at budget wise is how to get Aaron an assistant because the work is big and we know it takes a lot. But how can we get him the support that he needs?
I think the goal is outstanding, but that was really the point of the question was like, it just seems like a lot for one person to be
Yes.
point person for, so I'm glad that
Yes.
you're thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then goal 3 is our art electives arts pathways. And so the structure of that is to build up strong transition from elementary to high school, the solidified pathways that give students opportunities if they choose to narrow down an arts pathway that will culminate in a internship, graduation, or experience that will lead them to either college or career within that pathway. It's not a necessity, but with the defined arts pathway, we're also able to really define our arts community partners that are willing to step in and have the students participate in them, building theater at Theater Square or working on sound or all these different organizations now that we're focused in and we've kind of identified what skill sets we're providing students so they can walk into those experiences successfully. And then one of the data points on that is the student success plan. So as part of the LEARNS Act, one of the requirements is that students have a workable success plan that they start really, it could be as early as 5th grade, but that they're looking at all the time and rethinking about what their goals are. It could be a yearly goal, it could be a monthly goal, or a long range goal. What do they want to do as they advance themselves in their high school career? And then with that goal, then it becomes, I'm interested in this, or I'm not interested in that, and we really can kind of tailor an individual plan for each student through this process. And so that's going to be one of our pieces with the arts pathway is looking at those student success plans and are we working with kids if they don't have the interest? Are we providing them enough exploratory options so they maybe can find something that they're interested in, or how can we guide them?
Who's in charge of student success?
So with the addition of our college and career counselor, she's going to be managing that. Also, the school has had Naviance, which is a counselor program, but basically it's all about, the school has had it for, I don't know, a long time for free, and it's not ever been used. So we're taking advantage of that, using the
Great
Naviance program and our new college,
Excellent new college.
excellent new college and career counselor, and we've just hired an excellent new career development teacher that's going to sit and going to help kids think about what they would like to do in a way that hold them towards community service, which is another part of the requirements now. I guide them in the most appropriate ways and get them interested in thinking about what their next steps are. Goal number 4, increased student engagement. So really this goes back into, we know students can't perform if we have not found a way to reach them. And part of that is that teacher efficacy and knowing where students' levels are and knowing diversified instructional capabilities and instructional strategies to reach every student, our lows as well as our highs. And with that said, we mentioned before that we have fantastic new gifted and talented coordinator, Ms. Laney Adams, who is developing a K-12 gifted and talented program that will address our movement of the highs and also giving them into accelerated learning, not just more work, but meaningful, critical thinking work that's going to help them advance and also stay engaged, because the disengagement from gifted students is just as critical as the disengagement from our kids that are struggling with learning challenges. So the interventions taking with our student engagement is continued arts integration, continued artful learning, our partnerships, getting kids out of the classroom walls and taking their learning outside into other spaces where they can make those connections. Increased participation in East. So we are now a K-12 East district. And we got that finalized today, actually, as we went through the training of what that's going to look like. And the new East teacher is going to has had success of his former position as an East coordinator, East teacher. We hate that we're losing Mai, but she's going off into an incredible, exciting new adventure, which we wish her all the best on. And we were really worried about replacing her. But we have found someone that's interested in this charter environment that has had success in East. So we're going to see a hopeful bridge with those two programs really together and united. You know, looking at how do we train our staff to recognize when students aren't engaged. And by engaged, I don't mean just busy or reading or on a computer, but really are they engaged with the learning process? And is it something that they're retaining and able to take that retention on into another area? So we're going to have training on how to recognize student engagement. And then all of the other pieces, you know, the resources we've identified is some more professional development. We've been accepted into a BX3 behavior team at the high school, which is that PBIS, it's that positive behavior. And so elementary is going to set the foundation with PBIS training, really looking at why kids are disruptive in classrooms, has a lot to do with student content engagement versus a discipline issue, but sometimes it manifests if it's not addressed. PBIS training, behavior teams at the high school, and then, you know, just assistance on what do we do with those particular students. Goal number 5 is attendance. So our attendance has been, it's been a problem this year, and it hasn't been maintained appropriately for many different reasons, but we know that attendance is essential to student success. Students cannot be successful if they're not in the classroom. And so we're going to really work on attendance being a priority and a goal, and making sure that if students are not attending school or has chronic absences, that is addressed immediately so it does not continue. There are pretty strict laws on what happens when kids are absent, but the most important thing is what are we doing to support those families if they are not in attendance? What are the barriers that aren't allowing them to either be to school on time, or what is happening that they are distracted from that requirement?
Do we have that policy and procedure written?
We have it in the student handbook, but we will make sure that all of it is updated and all of that's very clear. Another part of this is having a very strong back to school meeting, so we were all on the same page. We just need to
Make sure that we're here.
absolutely,
That's
that's a great idea.
and tell where we need it to be.
Yes. Unfortunately, we've got a trend, and especially high school kids that to leave, check themselves out. We have some kids that are in credit recovery situation that would rather not be there. And what they don't understand, if it snowballs, there's no point that they are off track. And so our goal is to not get them to that point and also shore up what's needed to keep the kids from being school. The last part, goal 6, probably should almost be above academics, but it's the health and wellness. And we actually even met yesterday after school to fine tune what this looks like. And it's health and wellness, not only for students, but our staff as well. What do we need to make sure that we're also supporting mental health, and what other components of mental health do we need to make sure that we're supporting students as they navigate through? And that is social media addiction, which is a thing. And it's really, do we have enough counseling support services that we can have a structured environment at school where our counselors can do their counseling role, but also do we have enough people that are coming into our campus or onto our campus to help support the counselors as well? So we've got, as our guidance coming on a regular basis, what other counseling programs do we have that support small group learning, small group intervention to look at mental health?
Do we have access? Oh, I might be asking the wrong person, but I've heard. Do we have access to like U of A interns to do small group work at the
As long as you
elementary high
have a
school?
license.
When they're
Staff
working.
to do the
So Ms. Shelver is working on our social workers. We had some last year, and that's kind of hit and miss, but the goal is that we have the interns on campus getting their hours with our students. With parent permission, of course, but also with the health and wellness of our staff. So one of the things that we're working on next year, or to start for the school year, is a teacher mentor program. We've got some staff that have stepped up and want to lead that. So what do staff need when they come on board? Charter world is very different than a big public school district. And so what do they need to be successful? What can we provide them? What kind of space can they have on campus if they might need to decompress in? Terry Harrell, our HR, does one job about sending out the therapy sessions along with her school insurance. But more of that.
EAP.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And what are the limitations, what the staff need to seek out that service?
We have the mentor program written yet.
No, it's in progress. So last year we put together an employee handbook. Remember, we spent almost the second semester last year until the summer putting that together. And that was really what do you need to know from from every standpoint, that this is more like a teacher to teacher mentor. What are the navigation points? What do we need to know? Working on both campuses and then bringing them together. Another one of our desires from staff is how do we merge our campus communities together? And how the teachers come together and unite, how do we create more social opportunities so they can feel like they have a supportive network with each other. And it's just creating the space and time to do that. And that's a priority. Just student services are our goals within, and we've got work with all of them, but we've also got planned. I want to highlight our ELL program, which Tom Stevison is an incredible job. He's amazing. And we are really pushing out into the minority communities that surround us. We have our first martial aid students and very excited about that. We've been invited to the stroll via toll. We're going to actually have the table set up. We are reaching out to our Hispanic population. Tadia is doing a great job in putting a lot of information in translated form and doing home visits and really seeking out. So we expand our diversity on both campuses. And that's an area that we still need assistance with. By no means are we doing our excellent work there, but we are willing and we are wanting increased diversity in students and in staff. It's important that we reflect our community and we are open and diverse. So this is the school improvement plan. Again, it's a fluid document that from these tenets, we will begin to focus on how we raise our I-ready scores. How do we make growth in our achievement? In your packets, you also got the new Northwest Arkansas report card. that was just published.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I noticed that there are a lot of them, a lot of the goals include intervention either by teachers or other folks who have special needs.
Yes.
Is that another area where we're gonna need budget dollars to hire more folks? Do we have those people in place?
So thank you for bringing that up. Intervention is important because with the new all ends, that is going to begin changing the way students get SPED services. Right now, it begins with all of our seventh grade, the way it's written out in the law. Seventh grade will roll in with full inclusion. And then starts out adding a year every year, starting next year. So then 7, 8, and then 7, 8, 9. And, but we have schools have hired academic coaches. So we've hired a ELA and math, basically an elementary academic coach with Megan Rosana, who's going to help us really help those intervention pieces by continuing evaluating the iReady data, pulling out and defining intervention groups, helping teachers identify and look at instructional strategies, and helping also group kids and looking at what resources the teachers need to best meet their students, and resources such as stepping into a class and letting another teacher go monitor someone else's class, leading those instructional rounds, looking at how do we set up data benchmarks, how do we manage our PLCs. Deb Arnold, who is currently at elementary, is going to be our 5-8 math coach, doing the same type of work, really evaluating why our math scores are low and what do we need to do to bring them up, and what's the trajectory of trends that are moving forward and how do we identify. We've got Deb Arnold.
And then Rosanna, the ELA math at the end.
Yes, and then a new staff member, and it's Valerie Breckenridge, is going to come on as the ELA history coach for high school. She's got lots of experience on working and teaching in all those areas. She's going to help provide the resources for the ELA and history, because writing is essential in almost every test moving forward, especially with the new Atlas, the ACT, all the SAT, writing, reading, comprehension is essential. So the new coach is going to help do that. In addition, we've got Lainey as the gifted and talented. So we've got some support networks that we're stepping in. And after the first hit, that's not enough. And we'll
For right now, Lainey's the only GT or
Lainey's
help.
Lainey is going to be the GT, but we're also hiring a GT teacher. So Lainey's going to spend as a coordinator managing, yes. And then we're hiring a GT staff, because that is a lot of work.
What's the teach? Are they, you're gonna go back and forth as well?
The GT's teacher is probably going to mostly focus at elementary. And then we'll go in. The beauty about the coaches is they're all going to PLC together. They're all going to do their professional learning communities together. They're all going to get external training. They're all going to collaborate on what teachers' resources they need, what students need as a group. And that will be an elevated level of support that we had before. And I think would be very helpful knowing that you've got skill deficits, big skill deficits in such areas.
And last follow-up question to that is, so how will parents get communicated to you if they have a kiddo who's pushed out, pulled in, getting an intervention in one way or another? Will that be homeroom or designated teacher provides that input? Will they hear directly from the interventionist? And do you know kind of the cadence of what that would look like?
We're still in the molding of this, but ideally it's a constant communication with the classroom teacher. Because that's where the student success plan is. That's where kids are monitoring. That's where that consistent is going to be. And it's hard as a classroom teacher to do all those things every kid, but with additional support and really a scaffold approach, we're hoping that communication increases. And so parents know not only what skill deficits their kids have, and where they're on the trajectory of growth with that, but what skills are being addressed with what materials, and what are the home extensions that can be done, because there's a lot that can be done at home. iReady gives a wealth of information as far as even books and all kind of activities that can be also a supplemental at home. So that is just, this is our first really full year we've used iReady. So almost its authenticity. And so I think moving forward, we're just gonna get better and better with that mechanism, especially if we use it more frequently.
Since in a minute, we're gonna talk about the special education statement. Can we go back for a second and just review the dyslexia?
That's what I was.
Goals and
So our dyslexia goal is really, it's getting additional screening, but also looking at our delivery of services. There is training that teachers have on 95%, not just basic reading skills, but dyslexia and identifying dyslexia services is a whole different realm of training. And so that's why we've had dyslexia staff be at the elementary school focused on screenings and pullouts and coping mechanisms and things like that. What we have not addressed, honestly, is dysgraphia, dyscalculia. And those two things kind of come in line with dyslexia. And so our next step is how do we roll in those identifiers? How do we recognize that just as significant as a reading dyslexia? Is a dysgraphia is that handwriting concept that the connections aren't making the same stretch as actually to put that out in visible, readable form. Dysgraphia is the same thing. Your brain uses that abstract thinking to actually put numbers together. So we are looking at new programs or new ways to approach Lexia. Is a fantastic thing. Flight is fantastic, but that is going to be also trained through our SPED program. So all of our SPED teams are going to get trained on some of these approaches because it's not something that's isolated over here. And how you identify a student that has identifications or markers of dyslexia doesn't only exist in this space, it exists in every space. And so we're going to start it this summer. December.
so what will be the Orton Gillingham program for students with characteristics of dyslexia now? Will it still be Take Flight or?
Take Flight is probably Take Flight is highly recommended. There's also a program called Spire, which is a little bit different. I think based on student needs and SPED team is going to go through all this training. I think a mixture of a lot, holding the integrity for our highest need dyslexia students, but then also looking at what coping strategies we notify or identify characteristics when they're in high school. Somehow we missed the markers or they've gotten to us, so they haven't gotten the skill set and strategies to be successful. So it's a combination that Lexia is good if it's not only delivered by itself because it's computerized based. So to your point, Marissa, I think the Orton is a fantastic program. And I think we're going to look at all of that, but I think we first have got to train more staff.
Okay, so is the new intent for them to receive their dyslexia intervention in the classroom?
No.
So
absolutely
it's
not.
from the SPED department?
No, it's just that all of the SPED teachers are aware right now. So they can have a more in-depth conversation with our dyslexia provider to see the patterns still continuing outside of the 40 minutes a day or the 40 minutes every other day. We're not speaking the same language. And so we want to all be able to speak the same language. So when these kids are pulled out for their individualized intensive, that training does not stop there. But it continues on and we are aware of what needs to happen or when those IEP meetings or 504 happen. But it's a well-rounded with lots of input and conversation.
Are the 40 minutes or whatever, forgive me for not knowing exactly the minutes, what priority is given to that? So what I mean by that is, are we saying, oh, well, they didn't get their 40 or 100 minutes or whatever it is, whatever the number is, they didn't get it because X, Y, Z? Or are we making this this is the number one priority? Like, is there anything that trumps this, getting their minutes?
Shouldn't.
My recent concern was that there wasn't enough staff to cover our caseload. Is that still accurate, Dr. Scott?
We have one full-time and we have one part-time. So what we're looking at right now is not having any more part-time. So we need to have two full-time, yes.
Would that cover the caseload?
Some of that's variables, like we'll screen out, get new kids in and we'll look at our numbers. But what we do is we look at the student need numbers, who has the most direct time, and then how much time is that? And then it's literally the math and how do we space it out? And some of the intervention strategies can be delivered in the classroom, but it's really hard depending on the level of kids. If they are just needing some additional support, that's very different than a kid that's basically learning how to read. So all those variables come into play. So we have enough for two full-time
At the elementary.
at the elementary. And if that's not enough, then we'll look at what our needs are.
Okay, would we taking some data? What I don't want is us to start the school year ill-prepared for our caseload. Are we screening at the end of the year? Are we looking at certain data markers at the end of this school year to make sure that we start with the appropriate amount of support for our students with parents?
We're doing that next week,
Okay,
and then we'll staff based on this, knowing that we'll have addition. So we'll assume we'll have addition.
is there a set criteria already established for the elementary PLC teams to be able to close out their year to know whether or not these students should be screened or considered for characteristics of the sex?
I think they've been putting forth students that needed to be screened this whole time. I think we got to a cutoff point, maybe the beginning of May. Those are the priorities for August as far as new identifiers. But for the most part, I think we're all kind of up to date on the kids that have been screened. Our kindergarten screenings happen right when school's out, for just in general. And then we'll look at kindergarten second semester as they enter into first grade, as they're beginning to learn what letters apply.
So we can look at that data this summer before we start the
Yes.
school year. So we
And
don't
in fact,
start.
I can put on the agenda for next.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we have anything written or in place or support in place to make sure that this is truly their priority? If they need 100 minutes, what are we doing? What do we have in place to make sure that they're getting that no matter what, and to document that they receiving?
We have, they have case files, just like any individualized education plan. And CSS services, they have their schedule and if kids aren't meeting their minutes, then that's a problem. But for the most part, I have heard that is the case, but
Who makes the schedule?
the teacher, it's like teacher.
But it does depend on the data.
The minutes, the dyslexia teacher or the teachers that they're getting pulled out of?
He or she will pair, there may be a child in this classroom and a child in this classroom who are needing the same intervention level. And so he or she will make sure that those students are worked with appropriately. And my sense is that if you're mindful of not pulling out during critical core instruction time. And so those students might be missing a little key or a little bit of another thing, but not something that gets looked at iReady.
But the priority across the board would be this.
Yes.
Or can
For the-
someone
for
say,
those-
no, I don't want this child pulled out at this time, and then that child doesn't get their minutes?
Like a parent,
Parents, not parents.
Teachers, no.
teachers. I mean, my concern is that even when we line up the numbers perfectly, like let's say we have 2 full-time staff, we have exactly this spots. And if we have 5 kids in each little group, then it'll all work out perfectly in this 2 teachers, but that's not the reality. You know, so honestly, where it may look like 2, we may need 2.5 to make sure that every child is met at the time that they need to, with a group that matches their data, somewhat near their age. You know, if there's a whole bunch of like jumbling around that really requires us to need more space staff-wise than just the,
That was my concern with the
Yes.
scheduling,
yes.
like
But they have to,
making it all work is a lot.
and that's why I said having the data as soon as possible, like this summer would be helpful in really knowing what we need. We don't know about our friends that are going to come to us through this and the other, but I think that we should be just go as far as we can to be really prepared for our caseload, so the students start the school year receiving the services that they need.
Yeah, so what we can do at the June meeting is I'll also put on the schedule that existed this year, so you can see the sort of the trend and the minutes served and things like that. We'll redact it, but we'll look at the trend data on when students were served, and for the most part, we'll identify the growth too.
Sorry, I won't belabor this too much, but I also think if we can be creative for students who have opportunities to come to school ahead of time, you know, maybe our own bus transportation or in the afternoons. I know we have clubs and other things that students are already, families may be used to staying for. That may open up some time that's conflicting with other critical instruction during the day, if that's available for some.
Are there goals related to that what we're looking at first? School improvement plans, are there goals related to dyslexia or the
Well, I think other than, I mean, you want to make sure that there's, in addition to the dyslexia services, but the services that are provided have very specific goals and expectations in them, which I feel like they do. Part of this, the support piece when that child goes back into the classroom is really helping support the teachers when there are issues that arise that they don't know what to do. And if you see a kid struggling and you know it's got something to do with comprehension, what do I do? And that's, the coach will be that support, and also just the ability for everyone to speak sort of the same language. So the coach will be helping, but also the SPED team will be able to kind of during their intervention time, recognize some of those things. So the communication back to dyslexia is just constant feedback loop where we're monitoring student growth.
if our specialists are EMS, we're having to do that.
So right now we've got a few kids that are identified as dyslexic in high school. They do get their minutes served in the SPED classroom. It's not ideal. And again, that goes back to really train our SPED team on what those coping skills need to be and how to reinforce them. Because in high school, their reading, it's not this easy identifier because they have the ability to read some to some level. It's the comprehension part that's the challenge. With elementary, it's like the reading is a real obvious and apparent struggle. The older they get, they develop their own mechanisms of coping, and we don't want them to continue that if they're ineffective.
Well, I mean, their cognitive load is all spent on them trying to
Yes.
code, so they don't have any cognitive ability left for them to move over into full comprehension. But
Yes.
it still needs to be addressed. It can't just be coping strategies. The root problem has to be addressed so that the cognitive load is no longer consumed by the coding. So they still need dyslexia intervention.
Right now, we have not been able to meet our needs for that to the degree we'd like to, so that's.
What about
Same
identifying
services.
and follow our sixth graders?
They're usually identified in SPED, or they have a 504 IEP that's following up.
So right now, we're reading.
It's happened. They're in the service. That's what they're training right now is to train all of our SPED teams to know like this looks like. And how do we move forward? So we know this is an area of opportunity, and we will continue to get some intense training this summer.
Covering any of the other items under 4.6.
Unless you guys ask any other questions, the only other thing I wanted to show you is the Northwest Arkansas report card, which is a comprehensive evaluation of all the schools in Northwest Arkansas. For 2022, done by the Office of Education Policy, University of Arkansas. They looked at the 5 big districts and compared them, 10 smalls and the charters. It's a great evaluation of where schools rank, what their growth scores are, achievement scores, school quality success, as to index, graduation rate. If we go to Arkansas Arts, here's our graduation rates. That is one of the things we will work on. So right now we have a graduation.
Is it how they figure it? Like if they leave us?
It
counts against us. Okay.
It is, are they graduating in their cohort? Now, remember, 22 was our first, we were in a partial COVID year. So some of these that were slated to graduate last year in their cohort were in coded for 10th, 11th grade. So those are pretty substantial years in building up to credits to graduation. So that could be they didn't graduate, they left for another school and we don't know where they went. They went homeschool. They went, sometimes if a student moves to another state, they're really hard to track. They didn't graduate at all. So, we know we have areas of growth on graduation. Some of that is college counselor for that. College counselor, increased student engagement, teacher efficacy. We have, we were up 3.2% from state average in our achievement score.
That's up from NWA.
NWA average, yes. We were down in our growth score, meaning that we're not growing all levels of kids. And we were down in our student success indicator, which is a culmination of some other different variables, how they're successful in school, their attendance, all those things that make them successful. Our overall ESSA, which is our overall school report card, we're up 1.4. Ideally, it'd be nice to be up. Elementaries have got a great gain on that, so it'd be nice to be up more. But all these are growth opportunities.
So that compares, yeah, the play is kind of the culmination of all those other scores.
Yes.
We don't get a breakdown of how that algorithm is calculated, but essentially that's what it's saying.
Yes.
It looks like we would be below Bentonville schools, but above Fayetteville, Rogers, and Springdale with that score. I'm reading that correctly. So still room for improvement, but without a doubt, but still trending in the right direction. And I guess that goes back and corresponds to what we were seeing earlier data as well.
Yes. So we have to have some focused efforts on raising our student achievement, focusing in our math and writing. We have competition. We'll continue to have more charter schools come up, so we have to pay attention, but we've got a lot to be proud of. As you guys know, our charter schools are very different than big public schools. We get different funding. And so we aren't able to put in the money to do all of the support services like some of the other schools do. So I think we're on a great. I mean, this is huge stuff. Definitely.
Thinking back a few years ago, it's definitely, like I said, work to do, but it's moving. This is
Yes,
the University of Arkansas. Is that
yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, this is great.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sharon.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else you want to cover under 4.6, Allison?
I do.
Okay. We'll move to item 5, which is staffing changes, personnel updates.
So we have 2 updates. Combination resignation, but what I also like to highlight is, and I want to make her come to the podium, is Ms. Michael Brothers is our new elementary principal.
I'm incredibly excited. I mean, this whole year, David.
I'm
and I-
excited too.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think we all.
David and I work incredibly closely together this entire year. He's been a wonderful mentor. He's helped me figure out this school, which is an amazing place. This is my 15th year in education, and this has been by far my best year. This is a special school. I was with Springdale Schools, and I was with all of their schools quite a bit, and this is just a different and special place. And it has been a joy to be here. I love it. I love the teachers. I love the kids. I love everything that we're doing, the direction. So I'm just very excited to keep going.
We've heard nothing but positive things. The warm welcome, a warm reaction from the room is always a good testimony as well. So we're thrilled. Yeah. David, thank you so much for what you've done for the
Yes.
school.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to your kids, that you bring here every day. We love them. Rachel loves them and with them during the day, and thank you. Board, thank you for being who you are, willing to serve professionally. And we know you have the students at heart. And that's all your decisions based on that. And I totally appreciate that. I couldn't ask for a better board. Roberts, thank you so much for having the confidence in me this time last year, saying, hey, that you and would you do this? And I'm so glad I said yes. And glad that wife Tammy has been with me, and she said, hey, what about Rachel? And so here she is. And but I won't miss word meeting. Most of the teachers I'll miss. Experience, I'll miss your kids. Vacation day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you mentioned. This is related, as far as the high school principal position, that's something that we're posting and looking.
It is posted, and we have set tentative interviews, or the tentative date for interviews is June the 2nd. So we are accepting applications until the end of next week, and then we'll move forward to scheduling.
Is it part of your plan during that interview process to involve some key personnel members from the high school to meet those people as well?
Yes, just like that was on Rachel's, or the elementary principal interview, we'll do the same process.
Okay. Any questions on item number 5? Okay, thank you. Moving along to item number 6, we have comments from the public. I've got 8 people on the list. I apologize, I don't have first names, so I have first initial, last name. So please don't think of it as being rude if I call you by first initial, last name. Some reminders just for the public, or for this is just state regs around public comments. We have to remember that all personnel matters, discussions about AAA employees or student matters are restricted to public comments. And then we have 3 minutes for each speaker, given that we have 8 people for public comment. So let's go ahead and start at the top here. I have B. Ishmael Boatwright. What's your first name, sorry?
Brooke.
Brooke, okay, Brooke, come on up.
Okay. This was about the policy.
One second, I'm sorry, I have to start.
Yeah.
Starting this right now.
Oh, you got it? Thank
I
you.
do.
We good?
It's about just a policy to handle some course load It was written in the handbook that it was gonna be handled, it required seniors to take a full schedule. And I emailed everyone, and Dr. Roberts got back with me and agreed to handle seniors personal perspective rather than requiring them to take a full load. So that's all I have for that. It's already been resolved.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Kay Churchill, is that Kate? Casey? Oh, okay, sorry about that.
Yeah. I'm gonna go fast, I've got a lot to say.
You got ready? Oh,
Okay,
go ahead.
yeah, so, I'm speaking on behalf of about 100 people on a petition we have here. That's made up of the community of Arkansas Arts Academy parents, teachers, students, and staff who are urging the school board to exercise their elective and appointed authority and carrying forth the immediate implementation of the following directives. In order to alleviate the concerns that we have, we collectively offer the following solutions: an immediate severance of the role of principal and the role of CEO, each to hereafter be served independently of one another; an immediate interim appointment of assistant principal Ms. Dale to the role of acting principal in the pursuit of a permanent role fulfillment; a committee designated in pursuit of permanent principal role to be comprised of Principal Dale, Principal Langley, each high school department chair, and 2 board members, with a permanent appointment expected before the beginning of the fall semester; the immediate reoffering of all contracts to all current teachers and support staff for the 23-24 school year, as well as any teacher who has exited employment as a direct result of the imbalance of dual wielding authority during the contract renewal period; a committee designated prior to the 23-24 school year, comprised of 2 board members, the CEO, the principal, and any relevant department head, to collectively oversee all hiring, termination, contract renewal, and general employment processes for the staff; and the creation of an advisory board pursuant to page 18 of the bylaws to routinely address grievances of parents, students, staff, ensuring an unbiased course of redress for matters that cannot find resolution within administration. Rationale: through several written and oral statements provided by a collection of AAA community members, we have witnessed a pattern of unilateral decision-making with lack of adequate checks and balance, which arguably at times has occurred for biased, personal, retaliatory, and otherwise subjective reasons. The absence of a high school principal and the seeming indefinite fulfillment of that position by person of already high power, position, and standing has consolidated an amount of authority that has undeniably negative consequences for every person who is a part of this institution. Staff has attested to impulsive and immediate policy and procedure changes that come without opportunity for input, adjustment, or clarification or implementation, and have found themselves penalized and intimidated for innocuous or direct questioning of said charges. Students have attested to excessive unprovoked punishment, sometimes involving legal authorities. They have attested to feeling scared, confused, and without administrative recourse, with a continuous onslaught of changing factors within their learning environment, including but not limited to abrupt staff dismissals, bell schedule alterations, the implementation and removal of extracurricular, interventional, and supplement support, and club and organizational programs, and other irregularities and disruptions that they are expected to immediately adapt to without input or support. And parents have attested to an overwhelming lack of clear and multifaceted communication. They have spoken to issues with 504s and IEPs not being followed, attempts for meetings and conversations that have been ignored, being tasked with the emotional fallout of their students' tumultuous educational conditions, and feeling disconnected from the community beyond the limited purview of singular administrative communication. And also statements from teachers who wish to be anonymous because they're afraid they'd be fired like I have been.
Is your statement in that?
And I emailed all of you my statement
Okay,
yesterday.
to be sure.
I didn't print it to put in with that, but I did send it to all of you.
Right, I want to make sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next I have B Estevez.
I can just stand back here. I'm pretty loud as
I'm
I
sorry.
am. I'm Blanca. I'm pretty
Blanca,
loud as
okay,
I am. Hey, I just want to go back to what Dr. Roberts was saying. On the 8th grade iReady math test, did she say that they were improving, that there was an improvement earlier? She did, right? I would encourage you as the board, if you don't want to be just rubber stampers, to go back and watch this entire recorded thing because she contradicts herself a lot during. So that was it. I was going to yield my time to Casey or anyone else that wants to talk.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Next I have D. Mulvania. What's your first name, sir?
Devin.
Yeah, thank you. First, are we good?
Sorry.
Is
Give me a second.
it D, or N?
I am,
I am.
yes.
Give me 1 second, Devin. I'm almost there. All right, I'm ready now. Ready.
Go ahead.
So my family started with what was Benton County School of the Arts like over 10 years ago, and we have seen lots of changes, lots of turnover, different CEOs, different principals, different teachers, and it's always been changing. Some of those things have been really great. Some of them have been not so great, things that we've seen fabulous teachers go that really we wish that they would stay. There's a couple of things that are really concerning to me. The first is that there are a lot of teachers that I am talking to that are having some really big issues. Staff meetings where people are being told that they're crybabies, that they're told to get on board or just get out. These types of things and talking to our teachers and our facilitators is absolutely unacceptable. We do not allow for bullying from our students, and we should not allow it from anybody within our leadership space. The teachers are what make this school. People send their kids here for the teachers. And the leadership needs to understand that and appreciate that and stop bullying. Parents need to be able to come forward and voice their concerns without being afraid that their kids are gonna somehow be in trouble or be reprimanded because their parents spoke out. It's a serious problem and it needs to be addressed. The other thing, and I'm so glad that the first gal came up and said was, you know, our high school seniors, they have worked their butts off over the first 3 years to be able to have a schedule their senior year that allows them to start college courses, that allows them to start trade schools, that allows them to kickstart their careers. And they should be able to be rewarded for that hard work by being able to have a lighter schedule their senior year and shouldn't be forced to take additional nonsense classes just to fill their schedule and keep their butts in this. It's not okay. It's not preparing them for the real world. They need to be able to go out there and take the next steps to be whatever it is and be whoever they want to be.
Thank you. Okay, next up I have R. Elson.
Yes, Riley.
Riley, thank you. Is that just like it sounds R-I-L-E-Y?
Yes.
Go ahead. Oh, actually, I should say.
I started. I'm ready. I'm here for you.
I have been involved with Arkansas Arts Academy for 11 years, 9 as a student and 2 as an employee. Over the year, the school has opened many doors and opportunities for me. Arkansas Arts Academy allowed me to create long-lasting friendships, allowed me to be completely and utterly be myself. But most importantly, it has taught me what it takes to be an educator. For those who don't know, I started my career with the school first as a long-term substitute. Then as I joined in as an employee over the summer, I started this past year as a paraprofessional and was shortly moved to teach Algebra 2. During the few months I was with the math department, I quickly noticed the amount of degrading insults, the lack of support, and complete disregard of the basic needs of an educator by school leadership. We were told we weren't doing enough, but we were never asked what we needed in order to do more. Instead, we were constantly being observed to no avail and micromanaged to the point of being questioned if we even know what we were doing. Being new to education, I leaned heavily on the amazing teachers in the math department. While I could never thank them enough, I can't help but also feel saddened that the principal of the school was not supportive of my efforts to learn more and did not provide me with the tools I needed to be successful. I learned quickly what is needed in order to have a functioning classroom. Educators who have built rapport with their students can actively facilitate learning and student development by being a constant beacon of support. These relationships are important to further the education of the students. However, a teacher was pulled in the middle of the workday and sent home per investigation caused by a student addressing them by their full name in an email. After finding that it was in fact a student being a student, the teacher was asked to, quote, not be their friend, and was unjustly held responsible for an issue that, as obvious as it sounds, was not an issue. Maintaining healthy boundaries and appropriate relationships is top priority for educators. However, our CEO did not give this teacher the respect they deserve and made them feel as though they did something wrong when they in fact did not. Working for AAA was not my first job and it isn't my current. I've enjoyed the multiple different paths I've been able to take, especially this one. In my professional career, I've compiled 3 key factors in what makes a position worth the effort. 1, if you come home upset,
more than you come home fulfilled, you need to move on. 2, if you don't feel obligated to give it your best, you need to move on. And 3, if you don't feel led, supported, or respected by your superiors, you need to move on. Who your team is led by makes the biggest difference in your performance as a whole. 7 educators were removed from AA staff in less than 1 full school year, 1 left by force, 6 left by choice. As one of the 6, I can confidently say, had I been under leadership that didn't degrade me, didn't insult me, and didn't discriminate me for my age, Arkansas Arts Academy would have 1 more teacher that was proud to represent the school. But leadership has to value their staff and has to provide an environment that is nurturing and productive. Aspire, achieve, advance. That is what the school stands by. Cultivate aspiration, inspire the desire for achievement, be an advocate for advancement. We see these things on our website, on media pages, and even within the school building. I challenge everyone in this room, even the board, to listen to these things so we can cultivate aspiration for our teachers, so we can inspire the desire for achievement in the classrooms, and we can advocate for advancement within the walls of the school without the fear of being degraded, harassed, bullied, or even terminated by Dr. Roberts. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Jay Oliver. And what's your first name, sorry?
Jamie,
Jamie. Okay, is that, can you spell it for me?
Jamie.
Got it, thank you. We're assuming that you're good. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jamie Oliver. I'm a student at the Arkansas Arts Academy High School. I would like to start my time by reading an anonymous teacher account. I feel the least supported most of all when it comes to my students. We have been told we are not allowed to have any type of rapport or personability with them. It's completely antithetical to a working relationship and a learning environment. If they don't trust us or don't believe we care about them, they are not going to listen to us. We've been chewed out and reprimanded for all kinds of conversations. Once a child was taken out of school in handcuffs, despite our staff members begging to let us talk to them, because we knew how to talk them down and defuse the situation. Another student brought severe expressions of a mental health crisis to a teacher, and that teacher was disciplined for that communication, despite only receiving and reporting it to all proper channels as training by mandated reporting. Our interactions with parents are limited and surveilled. Most of us know we'd be at risk of losing our contracts if we tried to come to a non-sanctioned parent meeting. We were told we were no longer allowed to ask questions during staff meetings. Now, as a student of Arkansas Arts Academy myself, I think it is very important to me that I'm able to trust and talk to my teachers. I need to know that they care about me and care for my success in education and that they care for me as a person. As a student, I know that from personal experience, it is very difficult to learn from teachers who you do not trust or have a good relationship with. If we're not allowed to have any sort of personability with our teachers without them being penalized, then how are we expected to learn in a positive and enriching environment? And I can say with absolute certainty that I'm not the only student who feels this way. Many of my friends learn better when they're in a class with a teacher that they have a positive rapport with. The teacher of any given class, be that an arts or core subject. As for the situations that arose as a result of teachers not being allowed to properly communicate with their students, I believe that each of these situations could have been handled in a much more efficient and stable manner than it did. But because the measures taken were impersonal and drastic, the events escalated. All of these teachers can be resolved by allowing teachers to have the appropriate amount of personability with their pupils, rather than expecting utmost professionalism at all times, especially at an institution such as ours.
Next I have P. Ratner.
I sent a request to cancel.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
thank you. And the last I have R. Kane, is that Renee?
That's me, Renee.
Okay, come on up, Renee.
I'm in a wheelchair, so if you don't mind, I'll sit right here.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, for the past 11 years, I have had 1 or 2 students in AAA. For the first 6 to 7 years, I knew most, if not all, of the teachers on each campus. Having children 5 years apart meant that at times we were on different campuses. Today, I can count on one hand the number of teachers that I know. Like any business, there's an expected amount of turnover. But what we are seeing at AAA has gone far beyond what we considered normal turnover. Yes, our teachers do not receive the same pay rate as public school teachers, but many have taught here because they genuinely love the school and their students. We have lost some teachers and principals who were great mentors. Countless lives were changed by our teachers. Now teacher morale is at an all-time low. Prior to closing for COVID, I attended a board meeting where a teacher with tears in her eyes spoke on how low morale is. Today, it is even worse. We are losing teachers at a high rate. Students thrive on consistency, and now students wonder if their teacher will be there the next day. Parents are starting to speak to one another and to teachers. Many do not want to say anything for fear of retaliation or loss of employment. We did have some that told us what was happening, and I'll read very generalized statements of what we have found. Please note that we went to great lengths to take precautions to protect our teachers. They cannot speak at staff meetings. Issues are being ignored or dismissed by admin, Dr. Roberts. Teachers have been called names, ridiculed, talked down to by admin. They feel threatened by admin. Students feel threatened by admin. Teachers are scared to foster proper, and I emphasize the word proper, teacher-student relations. Many teachers are the only person a student has to go to in facing abuse or hunger. Teachers are scared to talk to one another. They're told that they are the reason the school has problems. If we were to consult a doctor or a psychologist, the behavior our teachers are enduring is an emotional and verbal abuse at the hands of administration. Our high school does need a principal, one that will advocate for our teachers, but in reality, that will not change anything because the principal will be subjected to the same treatment as the teachers. As board members, you are also parents. These things should not come as a surprise to you. And giving the board the benefit of the doubt that they were unaware of the abusive treatment of our teachers, that is no longer the case now. The board knows and parents know. We are bringing this out into the light to facilitate change so we can get and retain great teachers. If something is not done and done quickly, more parents will be removing their students and we will continue to lose teachers. We will not be able to hire great teachers because the word will be out on how the administration treats faculty. I know for a fact the high school has to have close to 100% student capacity to pay for the building. This is going to be hard to do if you lose too many students. For years, AAA was #2 of all high schools in the state, all high schools, not charter schools. We are number 26. Do better, board members. Protect our teachers. They and our students are our most valuable assets. I got one more thing, please. Also, parents will be watching for any signs of retribution for our teachers and students that they may receive based on any comments tonight, and we will seek legal counsel if necessary. Thank you.
Item number 7, we have student council report with Alyssa Coleman. Alyssa with us.
She's not here.
She's not? Okay, thank you. Let's see, move on to, they just got up, but I assume this is item number 8. This is the consent agenda from our last meeting in April. And board members, if you had a chance to review the materials that were sent to us from last month. Any questions or concerns about financials or enrollment?
Oh, I just asked if we, for future financial reports, if we could have a year over year, a year to date, and then just a narrative summary on anything that is an anomaly, if, we got a big chunk in or had to do a big expenditure in the course of doing business.
We just, for this meeting, we'll have it just for this meeting, and we check in with and really, as you would expect, it's utilities, it's things that we do, nothing out of the ordinary, except that things are going up, we're still on track to we have the budget. There's nothing out of it. Typically in this, that's where we will report it. It's just been same old. So we'll just start putting this slide up from here on out. Now, as we move through the year, during our work sessions, we'll talk about budget, we'll talk about, right, all the kind of things. Earlier in the year before this joined us, there was an issue with the EMS HVAC or something like that. We talk about those kind of things and all that. Right now, it's just.
Any questions about the enrollment report? They look pretty much on par with what I've seen in the past months, so I don't have any either. If no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda from April. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Marissa has the second.
I didn't hear who was the first.
Kara has the first. That's okay. We gotta say our names, I guess.
Sorry. Yeah.
Get the first.
Can do that.
That's, it seems like.
Or
this
say
happens-
that-
this happens every month. Okay, let's go ahead and move to item 9, which is additional info from item from prior to board meeting on the April 11th, the gifted and talented program. That's presented by the lady. That's right.
Are you logged in as you? Are you logged in as you, Rachel? Are you logged in as you?
You guys didn't get the benefit of my lovely slideshow last time. When I
We have to have it this time.
We have to have it.
Gotta have it. All that hard work, it's gotta pay off. You've got to just sort of. I feel like we need to be throwing chocolate out for you guys to stay awake there. Anybody want a chocolate bar? Yeah, they got Twix and Snickers and Buddies.
The only review
So like. Who knew?
All right, we got slides.
We got slides.
Ooh,
All right, yes. So I am here to present to you about our budding gifted and talented program. Go ahead. So we're working on establishing our program with the approval standards that come from the Arkansas Department of Education to develop our program. Dr. Roberts and I met with Crystal Nail, who is the program director at DESE, and Amanda Peebles to discuss the next steps in establishing our program. They've already been a really great resource in figuring out where we need to start. And we're kind of in a unique situation because we had a waiver. We didn't have a program. Most schools had a program, and so they have been really great and instrumental in helping us figure out where to start, because it is not a situation a lot of schools find themselves in. Next, one of our next steps is to determine the measures that we will use to identify students and get the necessary trainings to administer those assessments. Again, they provide an extensive list of the types of assessments that you need in the identification process. So this isn't something that we're just making up by the seat of our pants. There's a lot of specific guidelines out there for what we will need to have in order to find out our students that qualify and then evaluate our staffing and program needs once we know how many students will be serving.
Like, is there something in there that like, we're a little bit of a unique situation in that we're an art school. Is there something in there that allows us to look at things other than just straight academic?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, the process for everyone includes things that aren't just straight academic. There are measurements of creativity, there's objective measures that are required, and some of those can be creativity assessments, but there's also things like teacher observations and portfolios that are part of it. Part of what we have really talked about already is looking at our twice exceptional students, because we know we have, like, I know I've had students in my classroom that are characteristics of dyslexia students, but are also gifted. They're on the autism spectrum, but also gifted, who have ADHD, but are also gifted. And sometimes in just a standardized test result and their math scores and their reading scores, you don't always get a good feel for that. So there are definitely places where we'll be looking at others. And then we're also looking at communicating about the program to families and the community. We've already talked about it at a staff meeting. I've done some pre-assessment survey about staff needs, their understanding of what gifted is, gathered some information from staff on students that we can already put on our radar that might possibly be students who need to test to qualify. All right, so some of the steps in the identification process. We'll have nominations, creating forms for caregivers and staff to be able to nominate potential GT students. We will also have
different identification factors that we will go through, like with an entire grade level as they're entering into the pull-out program, to be able to identify who might be best served through that programming. We will establish what data we're going to collect and a thorough screening process, what all the tests will be that we will give. Then we will have a committee of at least 5 members, that's a requirement, to analyze the data and determine placement. The data collection isn't a situation where you have a specific TET score. In fact, you're required to not have a specific TET score. It's more of a holistic approach, looking at the whole child, looking at each part of those evaluations to determine by the committee who best qualifies for programming. And then placement will place students in the GT program designed to meet the unique needs of our community. And to speak to kind of what you were asking about our unique situation, we have a really great opportunity here to create an arts integrated GT program because we're starting from the ground up. Part of why I am particularly excited to be a part of this is I've been through the artful learning training. I've seen with my students, I have some of your kids in my class, what some of those things can do for our kids and how that can showcase their intelligence. So I'm really excited to work on creating a program that's going to help support our teachers in meeting the needs of those students, help support the kids who are not currently being as challenged as they could be, help see that growth in them academically, but also creatively. So that's going to be a really great opportunity for us to share. Yeah, I mean, look at all these. I got a little excited about all my transitions. So some of the opportunities for enrichment that we're investigating that will also be open, not just to our GT students, but having a GT coordinator and a GT teacher will help support us being able to implement these additional opportunities and clubs after school. So there are NASA student spaceflight experiment programs where you can, I know we just came back from space camp and it's really amazing. So that's something we can do. Odyssey of the Mind is a great extension program for students that's focused on creativity. Quiz Bowl is another area where especially our academically excellent students can excel. There's the Northwest Arkansas Regional Science and Engineering Fair, which we can send students for that as well, and Science Olympiad. There's a long, long list of other opportunities as well. Obviously, these things will take parent and staff support to be able to implement, but I'm really excited at being able to look into those opportunities and take some of those. So what's next? Again, we're working on developing our identification measures. We've already started talking to staff about current students, their questions, their professional development needs. There will be parent survey and information coming out soon. And then developing a name for our program and logo to keep branding consistent with our Arkansas Arts Academy information. And that is probably the most exciting piece that I'll share in a minute. And then determining what training is necessary, staff development for specific needs to meet to meet the needs of our GT students through what they're experiencing in the classroom as well. Okay, so now that we're spoiled my big surprise. Go ahead. All right, drum roll, exactly. So our program has been named as the Charis program. Charis is based off of the Graces, the Greek goddesses, also known as the Charities, who in mythology personify charm, grace, and beauty. That's the 3 leads in the logo. Most commonly, the Graces or Charities are referred in art and literature in a grouping of 3. These minor goddesses are associated with Aphrodite and spring flowers in particular, and were thought to bestow beauty in all its forms, from physical to intellectual, artistic to moral. The Graces are described as masters of dancing, singing, and poetry, and associated with beauty, nature, and human creativity. Charis can be translated from Greek to mean grace, kindness, and light. So the acronym stands for creative, honest, artistic, responsible, innovative, and scholarly, which are going to be our core guiding principles in developing our program. So we will be looking at all of our offerings, K through 12, which will include whole class enrichment at the lowest levels, pull-out programs in between, and then as we transition into the 7-12 campus, that more advanced coursework, honors, AP.
This is exciting. Yeah.
Excellent work.
Yeah.
You ever see, you know,
New evolutions and new programs come through over the last few years, but I personally, I'm probably most excited about this one and what it can do for immediately for the kids, you know, that are gonna be able to qualify for this program, but what it's gonna do to set them up to continue that growth as they go ahead. It could be huge. So thank you for taking it on, and yeah, really excited.
One question, sorry. I know this is a lot. What is the plan right now? And it may change tomorrow. For rollout, is this like a in the fall K-12 rollout or
So-
kind of like? piecemeal?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So part of the guidelines are there are certain pieces that we have to have in place by certain deadlines. So students have to be identified by October 1 is the deadline for that. So I'm still in the classroom full time. So anything I do with this is outside of that. So once school is out, I will be able to devote a lot more time to digging in deeper into the specifics of, you know, which of the many tests that are available are we going to use to or have as our pieces of data. So the goal is, in my mind, to send that back to school, identifying students. We should be able to roll out the whole group enrichment, which will be what we offer to the lowest grade levels. That's usually an option for K1, sometimes 2. That should be able to be happening almost immediately. So that'll happen quickly. We will have to assess students, evaluate. The committee of 5 people will have to evaluate their placement, and that will be a lengthy process. So hopefully we will have all of that shored up and in place so that when we come back from October break, we can start implementing pullout, which would be something typically you would see in possibly starting in 2nd or 3rd, 4th, and 5th. 6th grade might look a little bit different. 6th grade might be more of an advanced coursework situation where students are grouped in order to have an advanced language arts class, an advanced math class, an advanced science class that addresses not only 6th grade curriculum, but also 7th grade, which can then help grow our programming at the 712 campus because we will have kids who are then ready starting the next year for more increased coursework once they get to the high school campus. The high school campus currently already has several AP offerings. So it's working with them to see what classes are going to make, making sure those teachers have the appropriate trainings that they need to implement those classes. And then once we've established a really firm, strong program, K6, that's just going to help support building an even stronger program as each year goes on and those kids move up to the 712. It will definitely be a process. I have gone to 2 meetings of the GT coordinators at the co-op in the past couple of months, and they have been a wealth of information and resources and very willing to share what their districts do, which is great. You don't always see that kind of sharing between somewhat competing districts.
Is that local or is that statewide?
Local. It's our Northwest Arkansas co-op. So the big 5 plus all those small and surrounding schools. I think we are the only charter though.
Is it possible, I don't know what the contract looks like, but I anticipate you doing a lot of work over the summer, and I just wanted to, is the contract starting earlier for her for this year? I just want to make sure she's.
Yeah, I have a look.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
yes.
I would like to have the executive session before we go into this.
Yeah, good. Let's see, all in favor of going to executive session? Actually, I need a second first, I'm sorry. Yeah, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Let's adjourn to an executive session. We'll be back. I do apologize for the time, but I thank you guys for sticking around. We're gonna jump right back in our new business section, 10.1. First item being a school resource officer, SRO. So I'll go ahead and go front point on this one. This is a topic that's been brought up in the past. It's something that really has never really left my mind, and that being the idea of having actual security on site, in particular at the secondary campus of the high school campus. Looking at obviously what we see nationwide with some of the things that are going on, that being a school shooting. There is a growing presence with security on site at secondary schools in particular. I have some of the data. I don't know if you have everything able to put up on the screen or not. Did you ever get that? Oh, I said it a little while ago, but if not, I'll just kind of summarize. So in the elementary school environment, you have, obviously, it's significantly less prevalent presence where you have, I think, as of 2017 data, about 20 to 25% of campuses had a security officer on site. And of those, only about 20%, 20% of the total number, so 5% less were armed security. So in that's elementary schools, we see significantly less of that behavior. But looking at your secondary environment, your junior high, your high school as of 2017, 60 was almost 70% of high school campuses across the country had security. 64% of those had armed security. Now the dilemma, the debate is, do security officers actually make any difference in school shootings? And there's a study from JAMA, which is really commonly referenced from February of 2021. Where it talks about, it's frequently cited saying that these officers don't make a difference. It actually makes them more likely for shooting. The data, what it actually shows is that it's more, you do have a higher rate of death with an officer on site, having 2.83 times higher than without. But these officers are only present at a little more than 20% of the shooting that have additional life. So it doesn't necessarily, the narrative doesn't satisfy to me that those officers are not a deterrent for that type of behavior, because 3/4 of those shootings are happening where those officers are not. So for me personally, it's something I'm very passionate about. I wanted to bring up to the board because I see these types of things happening nationwide. It doesn't sit well with my conscience to not address it. Given that I'm coming to the end of my board term, I wanted to bring it up one last time. So in just in good conscience, that we addressed it one more time.
So David did work, right, on looking at options for signature. So last time this we discussed, I asked for any and all evidence that this actually changed outcomes, and I never received any. And at that meeting, I also expressed the concern that having an armed guard creates fear, negativity, and is scary, particularly for children of color and other minority type children, anyone who's a marginalized group. So I cannot support an SRO until someone presents me with evidence that it changes outcomes. I have not seen any studies or really even any case reports on any of the school shootings where SROs were present, where they actually made a difference. And now here's, can we make the distinction between, and I'm not sure. Armed versus
A security officer versus.
yeah, I don't know that there is a distinction in
Okay.
any of the reports or literature. I do know that there have been armed officers present at many of the well-publicized shootings, and it has not changed the outcome.
Yeah, it was
Where-
23% of shootings, of the 133 shootings that were referenced in the JAMA article, 23% of them had officers on site.
Were they actually on site or were they employed by the district? And they were
Employed by the district.
Overall. campus
Employed by the
standard?
district, so if they were part-time. Sorry, employed by the district, so if they were part-time, yeah, you can see that they may not have been on campus. I just know 23% had SROs employed when the shooting took place, and those are the ones where the death rate was higher.
How,
2.83.
are we affected, or how is this topic affected by the Learn Act? You may not have that answer just yet. So I know that the Security Act is separate from the Loans Act, but has now been pulled into the Loans Act. So I know we have funding with tier 1, 2, and 3. We've all seen that report. It's really good news for us. It's not, security officers on campus aren't until tier 3, and I don't even think it covers their salaries, if I remember right. But where does this, are they requiring us, what are the requirements for the Learn Act?
The rules are being promulgated right now, that looks like. But I think what we can do is continue to roll this, so with the new safety improvement enhancements, we're getting funding. I think we roll all of that back into the safety committee as David leaves and find a new sort of leader of that committee, running back and then evaluating and reevaluating our stance once all these additional safety measures are in play. We're gonna have additional cameras, we're gonna have the ballistic tinting and the film, some of the stop posts things in front of the doorways. And then go back in and reevaluate. I think continue to look and enhance. I do know that when we have large events, there is question. Elementary's done a great job at enhancing their Rapture login and check-ins. High school does it at the same time as if we've got web performances that we open up to the public. So it is something for us to think about what that looks like. But we can definitely roll this conversation back and
Do we ever hire third-party security for those large events?
We do.
So our community is.
Yeah, do we do it like, we think 1,000 people are gonna be here, so we have X number of people, or how do it's really events when we are open, but we're open and we know that general public is coming in, that we are family. So this street carnival will be opportunity because the volume of, and there's many of them, we weren't checking them in with Rapture, we weren't doing all the things.
Yeah.
And so we did it at graduation last year, we'll do a graduation this year, it's just as always something I think for to engage in conversation, whether it's security or it's just safety devices in general. I mean, some schools are using their safety funds to put, the metal things. I mean, we're not at that level, but I mean, every school and every situation has different take on their needs. So it's a great conversation to continue to talk about our safety.
Have you heard anything where they will eventually go to having that the direction that the state's going? Have you had any indication? I haven't.
And I haven't heard anything other than this is a site decision, and that's how the tier funding came in. A lot of these, I don't think it's ever going to be, well, you understand, never, and I'm speculating, but I can't foresee being a mandate.
Yeah, it's too sensitive. I know, and many of you guys know I have kids. I have kids at Shiloh Christian. Shiloh Christian has 2 armed officers on site that are at the door at entrances when you walk in. Kids are laughing and joking with the officers. And they're very friendly. One of those guys is, and I don't recommend this, one of those guys is carrying an AR. And with ex police experience. So the intimidation factor, I think that's over. Don't get me wrong, but the intimidation factor just doesn't exist. That's and it's an important thing to consider regardless. But like I said, it's something that I see it happening. We all see it happening so much across the country. I can't stomach it if it happened here. And so I want to try. It's important for me to bring it up. It's because I feel like it's an important thing to consider.
Are there any pieces of bellwether that, now we already did a site security review and we have that report. Are there any pieces of bellwether that's done
and look at security measures for the school and make decisions out of that reporting.
So not necessarily for bellwether, but I did 3 and it's, I think I said, we're having the University of Arkansas has a criminal justice center, and it's called CJI. And CJI is coming up to Northwest Arkansas and putting together a site assist training for any schools in Northwest Arkansas, and we had discussed site assist. Yeah, there, I thought I printed one for everyone.
This.
Oh, yeah, it's in your file. Any school in Northwest Arkansas can register. Basically, it's an app, Site Assist is an app. And you go through the training and really you're using your staff and community to begin to notify any sort of concerns security wise. Is there a gate in the fence? Is there something not locked? Because they notify this using this app. All that information is tallied and it's sent to the administrators and making sure it's safe and secure. So I encourage you to sign up to attend. All other schools, if they can, they're aware. CGI is an incredible safety partner. I went to incident command training about a month ago, just on reunification, the concept of what that looks like and how we organize. That's something we got a lot of practices we still need to put in place in case of emergency. Do we have those things? We're working on it. So that's part of our summer work too. It's really developing practices. Organization. Love you guys, which is it's a free safety. Basically, they just have safety protocols that they share out. It's very icon based. And so we're looking at what do we need to put in our classrooms to really make sure that we're using the same language for any kind of potential emergency. But so safety is a thing.
School hour ago, we use Navigate. So
We have Crisis Go. So it's our program. So basically, all teachers, and administrators, so teachers can head up panic button if they need to. We do all of our fire drills, our tornado drills, all of those things through.
and make sure there's
Yes, kids are on a roster. Teachers get clear when their roster is secure. And they do have the next level of reunification. So
Was this all here because you wanted to look at the possibility of getting it?
That's what I'm bringing up. Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, we've only had 2 or 3 of us talk. I'm just curious what the board thinks about that. I know this is a very sensitive issue. I'm not trying to bulldog it by any means, but I'm not going to make any bones about what my feelings are on it, and I feel like it's important. I'm just one person on here, so I'd really like to hear what other people have to say.
I haven't done enough research, right, to have an educated discussion specifically about the data. As far as you're talking about, like, if this officer was present or was not present, or this, that, or the other. Again, my personal experience is I work in a school and my kids are at a school where we have 2 armed security officers who open carry. And the kids absolutely love them. The kids go to them first. They take our security very seriously. We run drills, and so I haven't seen. And we did a survey. And it came back overwhelmingly from the students that they felt better with the officers there. And the only feedback we got from the parents was, we want to see them. So they're plain clothes, but they do open carry. So the feedback we got from the parents was, we want to know that they are security. Now, there's a lot of pros and cons, right? You put security across their back really big, they become targets, right? But we listen to the American community and they now wear public that say security on them right here. But so I haven't seen, I don't know what reports are out there.
You brought up a good question about student feedback. We talked about that.
Maybe we about this discussion, and so maybe that's, I'm not sure where that landed, but maybe that's.
And I think
another
every community
task
is
for this
we should maybe see what does our parent community want? And that is, but again, right, all I see is what was there. But they do a lot of work. They do a lot of work to make those connections with the kids.
And their primary goal and what they're trained in, at least the ones that I'm familiar with too, is to so
So,
they're
yeah.
really, that's why the
We
kids that
don't
I've seen.
them
my experience,
officers
yeah.
and they are CSSO certified, so they are, it's not a B cop of history, right? That doesn't have experience with children, they're specifically trained to work in a school district. So, it's a, like you said, it's a lot. There's a lot of pieces and there's a lot of.
It's a sensitive topic, but I'm curious if there's anybody else who wants to.
My intern was also at a school with an armed security guard who open carries. He's one of the first people I've met at the school, very friendly, very good relationship. My child's school does have a high percentage of minority students present, and no one is ever threatened or see the other. In fact, when I pick my child up, I see him and many of the kids talking to security guard. I mean, that particular school is not us. Okay, the kids that go to school probably wouldn't be afraid of a security guard because they are probably not. It's tossed, so I just think that, but again, I don't know how the relationship started because my child is just beginning that year in the school, but he's never been intimidated as a
It's a good test.
It's really.
I think as long as we revisit it, like pick a date and we revisit it, because we talked about it months ago and nothing has been decided. The Arkansas School Safety Commission report from 2022 recommends that no campus ever should be without armed security, and they should have at least one school resource officer for each campus. And there is data here where they have only 20% of the districts in the state have this or all campuses. So if we're looking for data, it's just, there's not enough to have it. But I also think that in a situation where you have an SRO that could prevent a violent attack on our students, that's all the safety measures that someone came into our school to harm our students, and somebody was there to stop them. That's why you got that in place. And I think that definitely there could be a relationship with this person, and it could be a positive authority figure in their life, like you're saying.
Several examples.
Yes.
And I will say this, the data thing, it is tough. It's really hard to find a non-simple take on that data. Like I said, the data that I was referencing was JAMA, which is a very well-respected medical journal. That was, and then from the National Bureau for Education Statistics, which is a government entity. That's just looking at how many people have security officers. So I was trying to go as neutral as possible, not going on one side of the aisle or the other to look at what stats we find.
And I think there's always a lot of ways to look at data. Like I definitely heard what you said about with a security officer present, there was a 2.8 times more like
3x multiplier as far as the death rate shootings that occur, but significantly less occurrence where there's actually someone.
so that almost says that they're less likely to go to schools with a security officer on site, but if they do decide, they're probably more heavily armed because so it's so you look at that data, if the data just says two things in the favor, two things that you don't have to look at it.
Yeah, and it's a tough one. I look at it, I mean, school shooting is tragic no matter what. Sure, the more people that are affected by it, the more people that are harmed by it is exponentially worse. I just can't stomach how often this is happening, and that's why I'm bringing it up. But it sounds like, I mean, if I'm summarizing for the group, a suitable next step would be to poll the audience of parents and teachers to get their thoughts. Again, I've said it several times, it's a very polarizing issue, very strong opinions on both sides. But I think it's important for us to be able to talk to the teachers and the parents and get their opinions as well.
I think we're gonna do something like that. Just not getting, when we put these opportunities out there for feedback, we're not getting the feedback. Right? So we have 1,000 students, and if there's, 2 people per student plus all of our staff, we should be getting a significant number of responses back, and we're not. So, I don't know if that means
No, it's a good point.
more information, but if we're sitting here saying we want to make a decision based on what our community wants, and then our community doesn't respond.
Is there a way maybe we can offer a poll at the schoolhouse or somewhere where parents are present? Because I just think it's out of sight, out of mind, but maybe a poll for something like when parents are actually.
Multiple languages, it's gotta be in multiple languages.
If we have 2,000 parents,
I mean-
assuming that everybody would have 2 parents, would make that's an incorrect assumption, but let's say there are 1,500 parents out there, we should be able to do a whole lot better with 50 or 60 votes.
Right.
Like we had on the latest board member. If that's not indicative of the body of parents, just any study of data that looked at that small of a sample set would never be considered valid. So we need to broaden out. Okay, so is that something we can do? that?
Absolutely, I will get that information and I'll report out on in June.
Okay, let's go to item 10.2, SPED Part 1, District Application for Services for the school year 2023.
For expense, I think it's just a smart. State required application. And they're gonna. Well, basically, it's our agreement that we're gonna do the services as required. Within the next school year, and how we're using our funding and making sure we're doing all the reporting. And we are in alignment with all of our services.
So you just need to move to approve.
Yes.
Kara. Okay. Any
Or is the
opposed?
second?
Yeah, Kara,
Kara was the motion. And Marissa was the second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. 10.3 custodial services.
So, this is the custodial salary schedule for your review. What we tried to do in this is, mirror some surrounding districts that have their own custodial services. As we assume all of our custodial operations beginning July 1, this salary schedule will help us navigate that structure. In addition to the salary, we're also offering the benefits, the days off, the sick leave, all of the other teacher retirement. So we've had a lot of applications, and right now we're beginning to hear custodians, which will also help. We're keeping with our maintenance and facilities, so when they're not doing custodial work, they'll help with the facility because he's really busy. And so then the custodians will then do the day-to-day work. And we're really excited about taking that over. We feel like we're gonna get a lot better quality and a lot more urgency in some of the needs that we have within our business.
I move that we approve the custodial salary schedule.
All in favor?
Kara was second.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 10.4.
So this is for your preview. This is our daily bus driver salary schedule. So last year, we voted to approve a salary increase, and now what I'm bringing forward is another salary increase. However, what this is doing is reducing their amount of days. Currently, they are working a 190, because that is sort of the amount of hours teachers are working, but we don't need them all that time. This is what's going to reduce their number of contact days, and it's also going to make sure that they're only in operation for the time that they need. So we eliminated a bus, which is a cost saving effort for us. Now what we want to make sure is that our bus drivers are not here times that's not needed, reducing their days. So we're able to increase their pay with those reductions, and it's only going to effectively cost us under $2,000 to pay them more, make it more competitive. There is $4,044. And then it also allows them to pick up field trips, to, do extra things, and the salary is competitive. Right now, it's very hard to find the bus driver. Everyone, they're in high demand. And so right now we're trying to find ways to incentivize them by pay and very specific time frame.
That we approve the 2023-2024 bus driver salary schedule. The second.
The second was Allison. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries. Last one is item 10.5, and that is our board member appointment. So we had some confusion and some frustration, I think is probably a good way to summarize it. It came out of this board election process. And Allison, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this came about through the work we're doing with Bellwether in that consulting project. We were basically, the light was shown on the fact that we've been handling these elections out of compliance with our application to the state for a charter school.
Yes.
And if I'm, let me read that. I had it pulled up because I might want to make sure I get it right. Essentially, the parking question is it's on page 3 of that document. And maybe you can share that link for people to see it. And this amendment was from 2017 was the last time we applied.
Yes.
Essentially, I'm sorry, every time I zoom, it's messing it up. There we go. It's one of the last line in our board members. So the school board member as appointed to the school. I'm sorry. Here it is. I know, right? Everything like read it. A school board member as appointed by the school board will serve as a dispersing agent, alternate in the event of secretary treasurer. It goes on to the roles, but essentially a school board as appointed by the school board. The way we've been doing this is having vote going out to parents and to staff, or just to the public in general, to say, who do you think we should put on the board? And then using that as the determining factor in bringing those people on. I personally still see a ton of value in that survey going out to the public so we can get that feedback. But it sounds like we've been out of compliance, and the way that we've been handling it is just accepting that their vote is the final vote. But ultimately, it's up to us as board members to decide who those next people are. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes.
What is the advantage for our charter school board to elect the board members over the community, like specifically with the charter school?
I think, so when we began our work with Bellwether, which is the education foundation and advantages growth for charter schools. One of the things we began to identify is our funding mechanisms. We've known that we don't get tax revenue, we pay for student funding. And so that's why we've had to structure a lot of things differently. We've had waivers for teacher salary, all the things that we haven't been doing in the past because we didn't have the right funding for. And the role of the charter school because of this is the need for the board to assist in some of those mechanisms such as fundraising and capital campaigns and all those things that that helps a board rise up just like a major nonprofit. Because we do not get tax revenue, we the community does not pay into our school district. So like Bentonville, for example, everyone that lives in Bentonville area, their tax revenues go to Bentonville School District, and thus they have zone sections where they are allocated a vote, because that's where their tax dollar. You do not get tax revenue, and so for the poor students from 50-mile radius, it's not a good feature. So best practice in board, in charter schools is the ability for the board to recommend board because of the different structure. And it allows us the autonomy, which is one of the aspects of charter schools that we like, and the autonomy of education, but also the autonomy on how we put together a board and how it's managed. So in the original application to be a charter, Arkansas Art Academy wrote in 2014, this structure of what the charter school is going to look like in replication of other charter schools. It was literally almost a mirror copy of what a charter school. And then in 17, they went in for the full review and it did the exact same thing. And then we have adopted by policies from APRC stating this is what charter schools do across the board. And several people at our bellwether work, like how are we normed with other charter schools? How are we competitive with other charter schools? And it came down to how are we the same and how are we different? And we stood out just looking at, let's look at our bylaws and policies. How do we manage our boards? And that's what became identified.
So I'd recommend two pieces to this, for the board for consideration for a vote. So I guess I'd make them as a motion. The first being that we follow for all current and future board elections, we follow the guidelines that we put forth in the bylaws that we've submitted to the state for the AAA application. And that the second be that we still keep the public vote as an avenue for feedback. So we're still involving really the key stakeholders in that decision in the process. So we're not just doing this on our own, but informed. I think that's a very, very important piece. So I guess it would be two motions. The first being that we would adhere to the bylaws as submitted to the state. So I mean,
Motion, is that a repeated motion?
well, each.
We should have been.
True.
I don't think we have to.
That's a good-
Yeah, we don't have to change anything. We have to agree. We have to. Let her do what we're supposed to
That's a
do.
good
Yeah.
point. In the motion would be that the survey in place, so we can get that feedback from the public to help guide us.
Do you want that written in our bylaws that?
I want us to agree that
part
we're
of
gonna do
our
it.
Board. Where section. Add that to our. I mean. I'm not sure. I'm not sure we can have that.
I don't
It
think
would
it
be
has to be
added
added
to
to
the
bylaws. I think it should have a recommendation.
Right, it's a recommendation that we are going to keep that as a part of the election process. And if it's not written down anywhere, that's why we gotta have it in minutes here. Because if we've just been doing that, it's never been recorded in minutes, well, that's out of compliance as well. So we need to have it recorded in minutes if that's the decision that we made as a board to involve the public feedback. So we would need a motion for it.
And I think I want to make sure I'm understanding, we're not excluding parent community from applying, wanting to participate in the board. We're just broadening the pool of folks who can raise their hand to say, I'd like to serve. And then this part is really just us to supposed to for our charter.
Yeah, the first piece is what I'm describing. I'm talking about the actual election process. So as far as candidates and such, that's a different issue. I believe it was a few months ago, we voted to have a single community member who is not necessarily a parent to be allowed on as one of the seats as an option, not as a requirement. That's a different issue. This is really just, I want to make sure that we have it written down in minutes that we want to continue the process of involving parents and the public in that process so that we get feedback from them to guide us. So we would need a motion. So
Now it's C.
second, Adrian, all in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries as well. So now we actually have to talk about board member appointment. Now that we've got that down. So we had a plethora of people that applied. I'm just going to open it up to the table for conversation around. We have to fill 2 roles for July. Is that correct, Alice? 2 roles for July. Who's coming off? I know I'm coming off. And who else?
Allison was
Right, Allison was temporary.
filling a,
engineering position.
yes.
Okay. So open up to the table.
support Allison remaining in the seat that she's been filling. She went through the process already, has fulfilled the duties, responsibilities and obligations to this point. And I think it's important to have her voice remain on the board for the consistency and the value added that she's brought has been wonderful. I'd like to recommend that she be in.
She's been a very positive contributor. So do we take a vote on the first member? Sure. Good. So it sounds like you're making a motion that we.
Can I ask a question? Will you be
You have
discussing?
one, actually.
No,
Okay.
sorry. I just wasn't sure if you guys were gonna discuss the results of the survey.
So motion to approve Allison. And who did the second? Sorry. Kara, the second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Second seat. Opening it up to discussion.
So I'm looking at all the candidates and once this all came up with the bellwether thing, I started looking at other charter boards to try to see what was the difference, like if this is what we should have been doing all along, what's the difference? And then I tried to align it with what are we looking to do in our future to sit together and what board member would support that vision in terms of the direction that we're going. So with that, I want to recommend Mark Evans. He has been involved with the school for about 9 years and he has the construction and engineering background. And I think that that'll tie in with the direction that we're hoping to go in the next couple of years. Hopefully, once we, again, probably need some talent on board with the campaign, but with ultimately hoping this with the building possible, just having someone who has that knowledge in the room, I think would be very helpful for us in those services.
I believe it's 2 kids, 7th grade, 9th grade.
So that's a voice of that.
Other candidates.
Well, I would.
First and second, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries as well. All right. Let's see, do we have any need for an additional executive session? Please say no. Okay. All right, if that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Okay.
First the moves, ready to adjourn. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah, man, it's late. Don't adjourn yet.
Oh, no.
Sorry, guys, long night for everybody involved. I wanted to stop and just take a moment to thank everybody for our public comments, for the people that actually came to the voting and shared, and for those that have stayed late. Even if you didn't have something to bring to the public or bring to the podium to share with us, I appreciate that you guys are here and staying invested. It shows that you care about your kids, that you care about the school, that you care about the decisions that are made, you care about good things, you care about things that are problematic, things that are causing stress. I hope that you guys recognize that feedback is important to us. Those are things that we carry with us as we go forward and as we make decisions in the future. And know that this entire table of people is very much invested in the same thing you are, and that's an outstanding educational experience for our kids first and foremost, but also supporting the teachers, staff that are educating those kids for us. So it's not a token line. This board genuinely believes that for every single decision we make up here. So I want to thank you guys. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay. Second. All right. All in
Thank you,
favor?
Marissa. Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. No, I'm like,